Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is my colleague, senior editor Alex Konrad. Alex, thanks for coming on in.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, and you have been busy all weekend with the tumultuous news in tech. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman was fired. Can you give us the highlight reel? What the heck happened?
It was a total bombshell on Friday afternoon. The board of OpenAI, which is one of the biggest and most famous tech companies, especially in the AI world, announced that they had fired Sam Altman, their CEO. Total shock. And then very quickly, the president and co-founder of the company, Greg Brockman, also resigned. And then this whole weekend has been chaos with a push by some people to bring Sam Altman back, which we found out overnight in the wee hours of the morning is not happening, with a new CEO and Sam Altman joining Microsoft. Just crazy roller coaster in the tech world.
I want to talk about the timing of this news first. I cover mostly politics, and I know a Friday news dump when I see one. This is what that looked like. It was an afternoon, and normally if someone's leaving administration, if someone wants to get some news out that might get unsavory headlines, they dump it Friday afternoon, hoping the weekend buries it. Is that what happened here?
This was, for the tech world, the Super Bowl of Friday news dumps. It was crazy. It was after the market closed, and Microsoft is a big player in all of this. So maybe that was partially the consideration. Maybe it was to bury the news, but it's absolutely crazy. Just a couple days before, Altman had been speaking at the APEC conference to some of the biggest world leaders out there, the Chinese premier, President Biden. All of this was happening the same week. And so then to end that week with this firing was a thunderbolt.
He has been called the face of AI. So who fired him, and really why did they do it?
The board of directors of OpenAI was really unusual because OpenAI is a nonprofit that has this for-profit sort of sub-entity or company that answers to it. So all the investors, the venture capitalists, Microsoft, everybody who'd put money into OpenAI, they were not actually controlling the company. We think of, when the CEO of Uber was fired, or there have been other high-profile corporate takeouts like this, it was usually investors and, money people who were pulling the trigger. Here it was a very different group. It was a more research-oriented group of directors who were on a nonprofit board, and their mission wasn't to make money for shareholders. It was to bring a safe AI, into the world for the betterment of all of humanity. So they had these very lofty, different goals than what we're used to.
And when you say safe AI, was his vision not aligned with that?
We're still getting to the bottom of why exactly Sam was fired. The incoming CEO, a guy named Emmett Shear, even tweeted overnight that one of the first things he was going to do as CEO was figure out why he was there. Like, what exactly happened? Even he doesn't seem to know. But one of the big theories and sort of questions is that given that the co-founder of OpenAI, who initially was part of the group that was firing Sam, was the chief scientist, a guy named Ilya Sutskever, and he was also part of a team in OpenAI that was supposed to be focused on safety of this technology when it got smarter than a human. How would humans be able to keep it from taking over and killing all of us, basically? That was his focus. And so given that he was part of the team that was pulling the trigger to fire Sam, naturally people immediately thought, okay, there must be some crazy technical innovation here or some risk that had come up that Sam was not focused on. Because Sam had just done a big dev day for developers, kind of Steve Jobs-like, where he'd announced all these new tools. And, he was really leaning into these big corporate partnerships. And so, yes, one theory was Sam was kind of on the business side. And then there was this more research-driven side that was concerned about the potential of these technologies. But, the board themselves, crazily, just put in their press release that he wasn't communicating with them enough, which doesn't seem like a great reason to fire a rock star CEO, but, probably wasn't the full story.
You just called him a rock star CEO. I'm wondering if he was beloved within OpenAI, because I'm going to read you a headline. More than 500 OpenAI employees threaten to quit and join Microsoft unless the board resigns. I don't know many employees who would quit in mass if their CEO resigned or was fired. So was he beloved within that company?
Yes, he was very popular within the company. He's very popular within the AI community. That's not to say that everybody loves him or that everybody loved OpenAI, but he was a very popular CEO. He had previously run Y Combinator, which is probably the most famous startup accelerator in the world. So he had kind of these mainstream tech allies and credentials as well. Like one of the first people to speak out in support of him was the CEO of Airbnb, Brian Chesky. And you saw a lot of other kind of big leaders in the tech world coming out in support of Sam. I think employees largely supported Sam too. But one thing we were kind of watching was like, would the researchers or sort of the most technical people who might have known about some safety issue, were they going to support Sam? At first, we thought, maybe not. But then Ilya Sutskever, the co-founder who was on the board that fired Sam, actually tweeted this morning that he regretted his actions and that he was going to do what he could to try to sort of reunite OpenAI. But so that seems to kind of undermine the sense that there was a real strong faction who didn't like Sam.
I want to talk about how Microsoft fits into all of this. He is now going to work there. Microsoft does not have a seat on OpenAI's board. Does that matter?
Microsoft still has a huge amount of leverage with OpenAI. They're a key customer and partner, and they invested 10 billion plus into the company in the form of cash and cloud computing credits. So in a way, Microsoft kind of now controls two halves, or at least has a lot of influence. They still have a ton of influence over what's left of OpenAI. And then you have Greg and Sam, and presumably a lot of OpenAI employees joining a new research arm of Microsoft. So you could argue that Microsoft came out ahead in all this, or at least still has a ton of power in the situation. But, I think their preference would have been for none of this to happen in the first place. Microsoft is such a huge company that they want stability. They don't want to see their stock fluctuating over things like this. And I think if they could just say, let's have done none of this, they would still do that. But as it is, I think Satya Nadella, the CEO, played this about as well as he could have.
Alex, paint us a picture here. At the risk of sounding obvious, why do we need to care about this? Is this ouster going to put OpenAI behind its rivals? What does this look like?
Yeah, I'm fully embracing the fact that I'm going to show up at Thanksgiving and have to re-explain this to people, because for the tech world, this is like a seismic event. And I understand that for the outside world, it can feel a little arcane. But it is really important, because OpenAI was the biggest and sort of most visible model company that was creating these tools like ChatGPT and was trying to build what they call an AGI, an artificial general intelligence, that was going to be this kind of like all-knowing, godlike AI that is smarter than humans. And people are going to continue trying to build that. And people are also going to continue to build on top of tools like OpenAI. So a few immediate questions are, what does this mean for all the companies who've been using OpenAI and its tools? Maybe for marketing copy, maybe for emails, maybe for customer relationships. Like, a lot of kind of meat and potatoes business has been happening with these tools. And so you would want to see business continuity there. You don't want to see the company just kind of implode fully. Then on the other hand, you have sort of the future of all these tools. Will it still be OpenAI that's building, these things that could get really advanced and either exciting or terrifying based on where you're sitting? Will it now be Microsoft? There are a lot of open questions there, because they were the leader. And it's almost imagine like, you're watching the Olympics and the sprinters are going to the last hurdle and the leader trips on a hurdle. And all of a sudden it's a free for all for who could go from second place to first place. We're potentially in a situation like that.
And lest we not forget, ChatGPT really broke the internet a year ago at around this time. And since then, AI has been in almost every conversation from every different category: politics, tech, everything in between. But what are the implications here for the future of AI? Because as your comparison suggests, they were the leader, they tripped and fell. Is this going to be a domino effect? What does this look like for the future?
On the one hand, I think it's a setback for the AI industry, because you have federal governments, you have big companies being like, what is this mess? We can't trust this messy company with, billions of dollars or the future of our government. So on the one hand, it's destabilizing and kind of hurts the cause of AI being embedded into everything we do. On the other hand, you could argue, and I would probably more believe, that these AI tools are becoming ubiquitous behind the scenes and things. For our audience, when they're writing an email, when they're, texting. Even that autocorrect is a kind of AI. Even the crash collision in your car is a kind of AI. And so there's another school where basically a lot of these AI tools become a big part of our daily lives. We just don't think of it as such. Just like how we wouldn't talk about a company as a mobile company, right? Like everyone's mobile. Forbes isn't an internet company, but we live on the internet. So AI could still go that way. But now, who gets to decide which flavor of it is? Maybe it's not so much OpenAI. So that is a big difference.
Alex, you're in a really interesting position. You are one of the leading reporters in this space. You had the opportunity to talk to Sam Altman earlier this year in an exclusive interview. I had the chance to read it before you and I talked. So I'm wondering if there's anything missing from the national conversation, in your opinion, whether it be from OpenAI, Sam Altman and his Ouster, Microsoft, and the future of AI and anything in between.
Well, first I would say I saw Sam on Wednesday in San Francisco, and we spoke briefly, and he did not seem like a guy who was about to lose his job. So even he was taken aback here, and I think that is just really surprising. I saw the first original investor in OpenAI the same day. He clearly had no idea this was coming. And so the fact that this happened is such a surprise. It's just like, for anyone who has watched House of Cards or who likes Game of Thrones, like this was one of those ultimate shock moves that happen at a scale that just you don't see very often. So that would be the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is just what this means for the next wave of tech tools is something that we're going to see in a couple of years. So ChatGPT is still going to be around, but there's going to be another thing after ChatGPT that you and I can talk about in a year or two. And I think we may look back on this moment and say, things definitely took a turn there, didn't there? But it's just too early for us to know exactly what that is.
And since it's too early, is there anything specifically on your radar right now that you want to put on ours?
What I would say is I'm really interested to see where all these employees end up. It's something that my team is reporting on, and I want to shout out the Forbes tech team. There have been a bunch of us just owning this story for the past few days. We're not going to rest until the turkey is on the table, on Thursday. And we've been looking at a bunch of angles. One of them is, will this lead to an explosion of new startups? Will it just mean that Microsoft just got supercharged and basically got to buy OpenAI for $0? We're going to have to really see where this shakes out. It's going to take a little bit of time. People might tweet, I'm leaving, but they're probably not going to also announce, their personal news this week at least. So let's keep on it.
Well, Alex, I want to thank you for your tireless reporting. I saw that you and your team were posting at 1 a.m., I think even later at some nights. So thank you. As this story develops, I hope you come back on and share your reporting. Alex Konrad, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much. Talk soon.